Swim school. Well, time for a topic that I think a lot of people might be interested in, um, especially hearing how I've approached it, maybe, and that is learning to swim as an adult. So, there's probably no secret that the swim is my weakest aspect of a triathlon race at the moment, but yeah, no doubt we're definitely trying to change that. But I think let's go back and see where it all started, and suppose where I've come from in terms of swimming. So my swimming background, funnily enough, I did actually do some very basic swim squads at an early age. Alas, this did not last long at all. I think, yeah, I probably tried to swim in a proper swim squad when I was like in primary school. Probably lasted about 6 months. I hated getting yelled at by the coach. Didn't really like the water. It was cold. Blah blah blah. So yeah, that was probably in around 2005 that I did a little bit of that. Obviously competed in like school swimming carnivals, nothing special. Yeah, didn't really have an interest in pursuing swimming. Was doing a lot of other sports at the time. If only I'd known then what I know now. So yeah, I haven't really grown up in true Australian fashion. Living next to the beach, essentially, didn't really go in the water. Didn't do anything like nippers or like surf lifesaving as a kid. Was more of a field sports type of person. So yeah, basically did a little bit of a dabble in swimming in primary school, and then basically didn't really touch pool water until 2020, which I'm not going to say I regret, because I definitely enjoyed all the sports I played as a kid. But geez, it would have helped if I had have known how to swim, maybe. So why do I consider it's difficult to learn to swim as an adult? So I suppose taking swimming up as an adult, it was particularly difficult to learn to swim initially, just because of how technical of a sport it is. Unlike a lot of other sports, like riding a bike, for example, you can't just, well, I see it as you can't just push hard and expect that to translate to good times like you can in riding, where you're clipped in, and it's basically how hard you push the pedal is how fast you're going to go. Swimming also requires a different range of motion and flexibility through the shoulders and the back that you don't really get from just ordinary, like, day-to-day life, I suppose. Much like the strength that you might get for other sports, like running, that you're obviously walking around every day, so that's very complementary to running sort of strength and mechanics. But swimming is definitely something different. It requires, unless you've grown up with that specific range of movement and developed that technique to be able to then apply the force to it, it can be hard, definitely, to learn one as an adult and then improve. Because yeah, before you can go and put in the effort that you need to get faster, you need to learn the technique, so that when you go to put that effort in, it actually assists you in becoming faster. You're not just working hard but not seeing that translate. So on to when I first got back into swimming. That was probably when I started getting into triathlons in the start of 2020. And basically it was pretty much like learning to swim from scratch. I actually started off riding my own sets before I started getting coached, and I was swimming maybe 3 times a week just at the local pool. I used to write them down in a book, which I actually just found earlier this week. So I was interested to see like some of the sets that I did back then in the start of 2020 when I was trying to teach myself how to swim. I've got an example of one of them here. So basically, this set that I wrote myself, a pretty simple 600 warm up, just 200 swim, 200 drill, 100 kick, 100 pull. And then the main set I did was 400 with fins into 2 200s pull paddles, into 4 100s with 15 seconds rest in between, back into 2 200s pull paddles, and then another 4 100s with 15 seconds rest in between, and then 100 cool down at the end. So like maybe about a 2.5K sort of set, which nowadays is almost the warm up, I suppose. But yeah, that it's good to be able to look back at those and see like what I was doing at that time. And when I did start swimming, I suppose I started off doing like short rest 50s on the minute. I remember feeling completely gassed after doing like, for example, 10 50s on the minute. And my goal at that stage was just to try and bring those times down that I was short resting from like 60 seconds to 55, or like if I was doing hundreds, I probably started on doing hundreds on 2 minutes, trying to get down to 150. So yeah, I feel like also when I was starting to swim, and certainly starting to swim more regularly, the times tend to come off quickly or fairly quickly when you start, because like picking up a new thing, there's so many changes you can make initially that can save you a lot of time. So one of the first ever races I did was the Husky Tri, which was just a sprint. It was basically ground zero. I did that in about February 2020, which was probably only about 6 months after I actually started doing any sort of training for triathlons. So that's pretty much the baseline of my swimming existence. For reference, at that race I swam 13:25 for 750 meters, which was about a 150 per 100 meter pace. And that was the start of 2020, so it's only like 3.5 years ago. So yeah, then I started getting coached, and within probably the next 5 months, I was able to steadily drop my times down, getting down to that like 140, 135 per 100 pace for like short rest sets. And I remember we still do, but we do 2K time trials in the pool. And I remember one of the first ones I did, I swam over 31 minutes, I think it was, about mid 31s. And that was probably after swimming for about a year. For reference, that's probably about over 130 pace, maybe about 133, 34. And then my first, I suppose, proper benchmark that I can take my swimming off is Mooloolaba Tri in 2021. So that was probably my biggest race at that stage in my career. And there it was a 1500 meter swim, and I went 21:49 for that, which at the time I was actually decently happy with. However, obviously we knew there was a lot of work to be done. It was still by far and away the weakest aspect of my racing. So we knew there was a lot of work to be put in, but that was the stage I got to. And then in maybe August of 2021, so at this stage I was actually probably not the smartest idea, but I was trying to juggle doing triathlon as an age grouper and also still playing a bit of AFL. And then, yeah, so in August of that year, I suffered a bit of a shoulder injury, which I got scans on and showed it was a torn labrum, which is basically the ligament that holds your shoulder in position. So it's pretty painful if it's not really working properly. Initially, I tried conservative treatment for that to see if it would just fix itself. I could get back to swimming, but that didn't really eventuate. So I ended up having to get surgery on that at the end of 2021 on my right shoulder. So that definitely threw a spanner in the works, not being able to have that continuity, which is definitely something in swimming that helps a lot, is to just be able to consistently keep showing up and training and getting that feel for the water that everyone talks about who has been swimming for a while. Yeah, so that definitely hampered my progress, set me back a little bit. But that I feel like that injury and my shoulder health in general has been somewhat of a limiting factor in my swim progression, particularly how much I can load and swim in a week, because for some reason or another, whether it's technique based, which is a big part of swimming, or something else, my shoulders always used to get really quite sore swimming. So we definitely had to manage that and avoid picking up any other injuries that would have set me back again. So over the last, since coming back from that surgery, that's definitely been a focus, is just managing the load. But yeah, so I came back from that surgery. I was able to settle back into an aerobic pace around 130 to 125 per 100. So this was in the start of, or when I got back from surgery, so maybe March 2022. So maybe 18 months ago from now. And I suppose, as opposed to those first few months where you start swimming and the times kind of seem to shed fairly quickly, at this stage, the times don't seem to drop anywhere near as fast. And yeah, it was feeling kind of like I was working pretty hard at my swimming, basically just to maintain the pace that I was already going. And when you start getting down to, like, for me, that 125 pace, it was very hard to notice like any improvement I was making, because it was just such a slow improvement. And obviously over the course of like a year, you might shed 5 seconds off your aerobic pace, which in the course of each week you can't really see, or even a month you can't really see as well. So yeah, since then it's basically been just incremental, very, very steady improvement to where I am now. And that's over the course of 18 months, swimming basically 4 times a week. So anyway, flash forward to now, and I think to explain my current mindset and swimming form, I'm going to try put you in my mind in my races this year. So basically, I've consistently been coming out of the water this is at Ironman 70.3 races, so 1.9k swim. So I've been coming out of the water around 2 to 3 minutes back from what would be the main front pack, which for reference is probably about 7 to 8 seconds per 100 on average, slower. And the strange thing with this is that I feel like I've always had the swim speed. Like, that's not really been the issue for me. It's been the efficiency and being able to hold that speed. So in these races, I'm always able to go out with the front pack and always feel actually reasonably good until about that like 600 meter mark, and then all of a sudden I just get shelled straight out the back, and then find myself getting picked up by the chase group, and then either just slotting in and feeling actually pretty comfy in there, or sitting on the front of the chase pack and leading that around. And while obviously it was frustrating, but I probably accepted that was just how I swam earlier this year. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was Sunny Coast 70.3, which was in September this year, which going into that race, I actually thought I was in fairly alright shape in the water. Definitely better than where I had been at the start of 2023. However, in that race, again, came out of the water about 2.5 minutes back. And in the dynamics of Australian 70.3 racing, it's once you're 2.5 minutes back from the front with the types of athletes that are in the front that can still really push a strong bike and even run quick times. Once you're 2.5 minutes back at the start, there's basically no coming back from that position. So yeah, it was that Sunny Coast race that really, I think, kicked me into gear and really made me want to focus on my swim and improve it. So I think that was the key, and probably is the key for a lot of people who want to improve their swimming, is at some stage you just need that strong switch or desire to want to really get better. And for me, that race was the catalyst. So post Sunny Coast, I've really seriously tried to change that mental approach to swimming. So previously, I would have been absolutely cooked and dreading, for example, we have a swim on a Tuesday afternoon, and normally I would have done a threshold bike session in the morning, but coming off Sunny Coast, I've tried to change my schedule so that I can really prioritize the swimming sessions in my week and try and hit them with the most energy that I can. So for me, that meant taking that threshold session and moving it and just doing an aerobic ride Tuesday morning, so that come Tuesday afternoon I could really apply my energy and focus to swimming, and that was the main session for that day. And I've also begun swimming with another swim squad outside of the normal triathlon squad that I'm swimming with. So I'm doing 2 sessions a week with a swim squad, and then 3 sessions with my triathlon swim squad, so 5 sessions in total, and hitting about 20 to 25 Ks a week, which obviously isn't groundbreaking, but it's pretty decent. And going back to that, managing the load, especially with my history of injuries, that's definitely a step up from where I was, and probably on a path to maybe take another step in a few months' time, depending on how my form is going and how I feel like I can manage the load that I'm under at the moment. So yeah, those 5 swims also would include a lot of quality work as well. None of those are just easy swims. They've all got either some form of speed work, threshold work, or short rest work. So they're all getting a workout in and going pretty hard. Since making that change, I feel like I've definitely made some serious improvements in the water. We did a 2K time trial in the pool again 2 weeks ago, and for that I went low 26 minutes, which was about a 20-second PB from the one I did previously, which was in about June. And for reference, that's sitting at around 118 pace per 100. So I suppose when I look back and think that 3 years ago I was swimming 31s for a 2K, and now I'm swimming low 26s, so I basically shaved almost 6 minutes off a 2K time. It's good to have those benchmarks to be able to reflect back on. And there's probably people who are good swimmers and look at that time that I'm swimming now of 20, like around low 26 minutes, and probably think that it's a mile off the front of the race. And while I do agree that there's definitely a long way to go, I think the open water, and especially in a wetsuit race, I could probably take a degree of confidence that I can at least follow the feet and come out not as far down as 2 minutes, for example, or even try and sneak my way onto the back of the main group. That'd be nice. But yeah, I think it's just that constant, gradual improvement and just trying to build the confidence in the water, which I think is coming definitely at the moment from the increased sessions and being able to hit some decent times. So I suppose moving forward, I'm hoping to definitely close that gap, and probably my aim is within the next 6 months to be able to solidify that swimming in that main group or front group in Australian races. And in terms of times, I probably want to target getting my 2K in and around the mid 25 minutes. Under 25 would be nice. Trying to think realistically though in the next 4 months or so, and try and get that, and then get my 400 time down to the 440s range. Noting that the first 400 proper swim test I did, I swam 5:21. That was back in the day. So yeah, I think in terms of what I would, I suppose, recommend, and you can take this with a grain of salt coming from a guy who isn't a swimmer, wasn't a swimmer, and is learning to swim, but what I would recommend for someone who wants to probably improve their swimming, as someone who's not a swimmer from a junior squad who's swum their whole life, but as someone who's trying to get into swimming as an adult, or someone who's wants to take their swimming to the next level. And this isn't just directed at people in my position. It's directed at anyone, I suppose, who wants to just improve their swimming in the course of triathlon or whatever it may be. But these are my biggest recommendations. So firstly, it'd be get a coach, or at least someone who knows what they're looking at and in terms of technique, and can monitor your swimming, prescribe you sessions, drills, to be able to improve your swimming. Because if you just go and swim and you have no one who can eyeball what you're doing, it's very hard, I feel, especially as a person who hasn't had a background in swimming, to know where you are in the water and how you're carrying yourself, how you're holding the water, how you're balanced. It can be very hard to try and self-diagnose that. So to have someone who can watch you and tell you what you need to improve, or even film you so you can see it yourself, that'll go a long way. So that's number one. Number two would be to find a group, or at least someone who you can swim with that'll challenge you, because it's definitely very hard to swim with the sort of level of intensity that you need to improve if you're swimming just by yourself. Having that group around you, or someone who can push you to get better, will definitely go a long way to helping you improve, and cut out those thoughts that come in when you swim by yourself, of just cutting the cool down short, cutting the set short, taking those shortcuts that aren't going to make you better. So yeah, number two, find a group or someone who can swim with you to challenge you. And then number three is something that I'm trying to implement as well at the moment, is just trying to adopt that mindset that will enable you to enjoy swimming rather than dreading it, and seeing the session as an opportunity to get better rather than fearing it, or seeing it as something that's like not as fun. So from my perspective, I used to just like absolutely dread some certain swim sessions because I knew I was going to turn up to the pool, probably get smashed, probably work hard, and also feel like I'm working just as hard but swim slower than pretty much everyone else I was swimming with. So I'd turn up to the session, and obviously with that sort of mindset, you're already on the back foot from the start. So to be able to see swimming as, especially if you're like me and it's your weakest aspect of the race, try and flip that so that you can see it as, well, maybe swimming's the area where I have the most room to improve, and so there's the most opportunity there to get better instead of, oh, it's my worst. So it's going to be the worst session. So yeah, that mindset shift is definitely something that's helped me recently, and helped me just attack each session to try and see it as an opportunity to get better, rather than seeing it as a session in my week that I should not look forward to. So yeah, hopefully that covers off some questions that are maybe common for people learning to swim without a background in swimming as a child. Yeah, it's definitely something that I could talk about for a while, having learned all these new things about swimming that I had no idea about when I got into the sport, and an area where I want to get better and want to also like help others who might be in a similar position be able to take that next step to improve their swimming. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. If you've got any questions or anything to add, even or suggestions for me how I can improve my swimming, or questions about what you might be able to do to improve your swimming from what I've experienced, definitely shoot me either a message on Instagram or just comment down below in the video. I by no means have all the answers, but I have definitely the experience of knowing what it's like to be in that position where you're not necessarily a strong swimmer and you're trying to compete against people who are strong swimmers, and the difficult nature of that from a mental perspective, and also turning up and keeping or trying to keep improving. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. As you can tell, probably this topic's something that I'm passionate about, and could probably talk about for ages, but we'll cut it there. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to keep following on this journey with me. And yeah, cheers.